Good afternoon and welcome to Seattle's Eastside Real Estate Podcast. This is your go-to source for all things related to living, working, and playing on the East Side. Today is Wednesday, March 15th, and we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Please feel free to comment in the comment section if you got any questions about what's going on in the market. If you are listening to a recorded version, please do review our podcast on either not Instagram, on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. We would love your comments and, of course, 5-star reviews. Today, we're going to be chatting with our good friend Tucker Maxwell at Guild Mortgage. But before we get to our guest, we're going to talk about kind of the market right now. I just recently did a short interview with King 5 News talking about the East Side and how over the last 6 to 8 months, and really last year, we've seen a reduction in sales price, 7 and 9%, 9% on the east side and 7% in King County. We look at those numbers and it sounds crazy to think of all the years of appreciation that we've had. And then we start showing this depreciation, or what seems like depreciation. And the key factor there is the east side is hub to a lot of tech firms, and a lot of tech firms have been laying individuals off. The truth of the matter is that the actual slowdown isn't directly related to the layoffs. The slowdown is actually more directly related to interest rates. We have been cruising along with 3 to 4 to 5% interest rates most of 2022, and 2021. When we hit 22, we had record low inventory and we had low interest rates. And that's when the Fed started stepping in to fight inflation. And later with Tucker, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But that put the brakes on a lot of would-be buyers. And a lot of the would-be buyers in our area are tech-related buyers, right? So a lot of those people took themselves off the market, and sellers, instead of seeing 2 to 3 offers in May and June, they were seeing 1 and maybe none for several weeks. And I talked about it on past podcasts that it felt like all of a sudden the market was slowing down and home prices were falling. But really what was happening was we're going 90 miles an hour and we just tapped the brakes because we saw a cop on the left side, and now we're going 60 and it feels like we're moving super slow. The truth of the matter is, what does all of this mean for buyers and sellers? First, I'll talk about buyers. Buyers need a place to live. And in most cases, some of them have relocated for a job that they still have. Now, if they plan on staying in a home, not an investment, but a home for more than 2 or 3 years, they should be okay moving forward. We've talked about that in past podcasts. You know, you date the rate, you buy the home, you fall in love with the home, and you date the rate. And as we'll talk about later, when interest rates stabilize, because right now they're going to remain volatile for the next 6 months or so. When interest rates stabilize and inflation slows, that may be an opportunity for you. Okay. Now, sellers, let's talk about the big question is, are sellers crying about losing money that they could have earned last year? And the truth of the matter is yes. Absolutely. They lament, ooh, why didn't I sell in February or March of 2022? I see my neighbor got so much money. So they're really kind of having this internal dialogue, if you will, and external in the event when we chat, that, you know, it's lost money. But here's an analogy. If you were to have bought Microsoft stock in the 1990s and sold them in the 2000s, I don't know what kind of gain you would have made, but let's just pretend that when you bought it, it was $25, and when you sold it, it was $5,000 a share. Now, if the market was hit in 2001, which it was, the dot-com bust, and you sold that share for only $500, did you really lose that money, or did you actually gain from the $25 that you paid for it? Now, the truth is you lost a lot of opportunity because of the timing of the market, but nobody knows how to time the market. Today's market, it's not 100% like that, because the good news is we still have low inventory. So while we're about 9 to 10%, depending on what part of the east side, off the peak, while we're that far off the peak, we're still several years of double-digit appreciation. So what happens is sellers now have equity when they sell their house. In 2008, that was not the case. And so when the crash hit, there was no equity, a lot of homes underwater and had to sell distressed and sat on the market for months, even years. So long story short is the sellers leverage that equity to help entice buyers that maybe are a little concerned about high interest rates. And we've talked about that in the past, but that means in the way of seller credits in order to entice you to get a lower monthly payment in the short term so we can let interest rates stabilize. There are other things you can do to leverage your equity, and that is maybe it's time to do the remodel so that when you want to sell in the fall, you're the belle of the ball. I love selling the house where everything's done. So if you've put off a second bathroom remodeling or put off replacing the tile countertops with granite, look into it. By investing some of your own equity back into that house, it may allow you to sell that home for more. Reach out to me if you'd like. I'm happy to do a walkthrough of your house, make recommendations, and give you an idea on how much you can earn in today's market. Know that it is still considered a seller's market. And that is your Real Talk segment. All right, we are going to take a very short commercial break. We're going to come back and chat with our friend Tucker Maxwell about some of the things going on in the Feds, and we'll have to talk about Silicon Valley Bank a little bit. So come back after this short commercial.